Welcome to the Faith Formation Roundtable for Mennonite Church USA Faith Formation Leaders. I'm Shanna P.G. Bushhart, MCUSA Denominational Minister for Faith Formation. I'm looking forward to sharing with you the Pause, Play, Breathe, Pray card deck. We didn't intend to make it a tongue twister, but it kind of is. Pray with me as we start our time together today.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Our Jesus, we are grateful to be gathered in your presence. We are grateful to be gathered with one another, fellow leaders, forming faith, growing faith in other people on this lifelong journey of discipleship. We trust that you will be with us today. We look to you for guidance, for inspiration, and for encouragement. Our hearts are turned toward you and our eyes and ears are open. Come and give us guidance. Give us what we need today. In your name we pray. Amen. All right. I am so pleased to see you all. Today we have with us a cohort of women. They're with me at the top of the screen on my screen here. In the summer of 2020, I offered coaching cohorts for leaders planning children's Sunday school or youth group for the following fall. Each of those cohorts met 5 times on their respective topic. And this is one of the cohorts that started meeting back about a year ago. And so I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves, and let's go in this order. Let's go Allison, Marin, Katie, Sarah, Michelle.
Hi, I'm Allison Casella-Brookins. I use pronouns like she, her, and hers. And I am a pastor at Chicago Community Mennonite Church in Chicago, Illinois.
Tutmas Hange, I'm co-pastor at Charlottesville Mennonite Church in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm also an artist and a spiritual director.
Hi, I'm Katie Mize. I am pastor of Family Life Ministry at Waterford Mennonite Church in Goshen, Indiana.
Hi there, I'm Sarah Neer, and I am the Director of Faith Formation and Congregational Life at Rainbow Mennonite Church in Kansas City, Kansas.
And I am Michelle Burkholder. I'm the Associate Pastor at Hyattsville Mennonite Church. And that's a part-time position. And then I do some visual art and parenting on the side.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I am Bishop Antoine from Rwanda. I'm leading Mennonite Church here in Rwanda. Thank you. I'm very happy to be with this team.
Good to see you again. We're going to start out by telling you the story of how this card deck was created. And I think that Sarah is
Can you hear me?
ready to tell
Hello?
us about that.
Yeah.
Hello.
So like Shanna said, we were all in a cohort together, and I think it was around this time last year when we were starting to think about how do we do Advent at home and make that a meaningful process. And I believe it was Katie came across this deck of cards that I think the Lutheran Church had put out with different things that you could do for Advent. And so we were like, how do we create this to be, can we adapt this mode, this process to fit a need that we have? And that need that we saw in our context was parents feeling really frazzled, not knowing how to connect faith formation at home in a meaningful way. And so how do we make a resource that can be less stressful, or a way to do faith formation that's not super stressful and hard for parents, but can be incorporated into routines. So we also really wanted a resource that helped families and really anyone embody their faith. And so not only it be an intellectual thing, but also something that we can do with our bodies and with our minds and with our hands. And so we kind of came up with these 4 categories that aren't explicit in the deck, but that were intentional as we were writing them. And those were to how do we use our bodies, our mind and spirit, how we interact with nature, and creativity and wonder. So you'll see those different themes weaved throughout the deck. So each of us all participated in writing the different resources. We'll go through some of the cards, but each card has a picture on the front, and I believe Michelle's going to talk about the artwork, and then also writing on the back. So all of us worked on the writing, and then Maren and Michelle worked on putting together the artwork. So yeah, anything I missed or want me to go in more detail, Shanna?
I was just going to ask the rest of the group if they would want to add anything.
I didn't think I'd bore you with the whole process of editing and all of that.
It was quite a process. All right, thank you, Sarah. And now we want to show you some of the cards, and Allison is going to share her screen and show you some of the cards. And let's start with, let's see. Here's a look at the card deck. And these are the first, if you quick go back to that first set of cards, Allison. Yeah, so these 2 cards at the top of the deck give you, well, it's the same card, both sides of the same card, and they give you tips for using them. And the one on the right is kind of how to use the cards. So go ahead and show us some other cards, Allison. I just basically, you can just kind of like scroll through those next slides just to give people an idea of what the cards are like. So we have a variety of images, and it's Michelle and Maren who made the art for these cards. I remember how at the beginning when we came up with this idea and we thought, wouldn't it be great if the back of every card was a different piece of art? And at first I just thought, where are we going to find all this art? Like that would be a big thing. And it turned out that all the art we needed was right in our group. And that was one of the many things that felt spirit directed about this project. So Maren and Michelle, you are going to tell us a little bit about the art on the cards. Who wants to start?
I can go. I think Maren probably has a little bit of a better and a more intentional process around this than I do. I think I love to make art, and I had made a bunch of the art actually that I added to this previously. I've made a couple of pieces specifically for this project. What I was surprised by in gathering the art was at first looking at the differences between the styles of art that Maren and I make, and feeling like when I first saw it, I was like, wow, we make very different art. And is that going to coalesce into something that is actually usable, or is that going to be jarring in juxtaposition with each other? And yet when we put it all together, it felt like there are differences in our imagery. And yet what I have found and sensed is that diversity of imagery actually makes it very accessible to people, because some people will gravitate towards the more abstract imagery, and some people will go towards the nature imagery and want something really tangible. And people might pick different things on different days, and that's what I really appreciate about the art. And working with Maren in this process is really just seeing the gift of art being this kind of very expansive way of getting in touch with the spirit, and seeing that, yeah, it really just because you might not want to display two of these pieces of art next to each other on the wall because they don't necessarily work together. They work together in this project, I think. Martin, I don't know if you want to talk more about your intentional way of making art every day. I admire that. So.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. So I had started painting the last 3-4 years, and it had become very important to my kind of processing, and I realized how visual I am. And so I had started a blog as part of a grant project, and so I had a bunch of art, and as we were working on these cards, and we realized that we had 2 artists in the group, I went through my paintings and just kind of chose some that I thought maybe kids would relate to really well. Some of these whimsical little creatures like the birds. And one of my challenges was that a lot of my art is horizontal, and we had decided that the cards would be vertical. And so trying to figure out which cards worked for that. And then trying to match a little bit the image with what's on the back of the card, the instructions, the theme. And yeah, it was just fun to work with a group of very creative minds.
I would add one thing in conversation with that, what Maren said about the image and the story on the back, or the activity on the back, is that sometimes it was very natural to know what image should go with which activity. And sometimes it felt like, I don't know why this image is here, but they speak with each other in interesting ways. And sometimes they're very explicitly connected, and sometimes it's less explicit why those images are together with that activity, but it's a fun part of the deck for me to explore that.
We also like the idea that the art itself can become one of the projects, or one of the ways that, you can lay out the art and pick certain ones and think about why you're drawn to them. You can, so there are cards that direct you to use the art on the back of the cards as part of your activity. Well, Katie is going to lead us in doing together 1 or 2 of the cards.
Yes. See. There we go. Okay, so one way that I like to lead groups through the cards is, well, first of all, you can see we had someone from our church make little bags, simple drawstring bags, when we gave them to families so they could not be scattered about. But I think we also found in our group that you could buy those pretty easily on Amazon or something. So that's one idea. But I like to pull out 2 or 3 cards and show the pictures and say, which one do we want to do as a group? So like in this instance, I've selected 3 that I thought would work well for today. And I wonder if anyone if a brave soul who looks at these 3 pictures says, "Ooh, I want to do that one." If you will unmute yourself and say, "I like the blank," and then we'll go with it.
We do have one little one with us today, with Bishop Antoine. If your little one would like to pick a card.
There was a suggestion in chat, the splatter one.
The splatter one. Awesome. Okay. So that's.
This is Arito Pastor is greeting you.
Hello.
Yeah, he loves you so much. When we attend the meeting like this, he cannot miss. And he's 2 years, so he will be happy to receive 1 card as a gift.
Wonderful.
Yeah, Kate, you make for him One card. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's try the splatter one together. So
Yeah.
you will see the instructions here, and it's what color is joy? Search your home and collect things of your joy color. You can gather them together, make a little altar on a table or windowsill. So for this today, I would love if everybody would take a moment and you can look around the room where you are at and see if there is something that would be the color of joy. And if you will go and fetch it and then bring it back, and we can see which colors we have all selected and which things we have gathered today. So go ahead and take a minute, look around, and find one or two things of a color of joy. Okay, I see some people starting to bring something that would represent to them joy. So would anybody be willing to share with us their object and what color they chose and why? We have a brave volunteer.
I couldn't choose just one color, but I have some flowers from my garden and some tomatoes, the last tomatoes from the year that are multicolored. I love these tomatoes. They're sort of streaky with green and red and orange and red.
You kind of like the tie-dye or the meshing together of colors and bright colors. Thanks, Cindy. Would someone else like to share?
I
I'm
got
sitting in a
orange.
public garden, so there's green all around me. So green chose me.
Hey, thank you, Marion.
And I
grabbed an
like
orange book,
flowers.
my dog's
orange.
ball.
Oh, let's go Lois and then Allison. Go ahead, Lois.
Flowers just always bring me joy, and orange is the color of fall to me, which is a season I love. So
It's a unique orange, isn't it? That's lovely.
Orange is also my color that sparks joy. And so I grabbed a book and a plant plate and my dog's ball.
Wonderful.
Orange is my favorite color, but I didn't grab something orange, but I appreciate those that did. You can tell that Cindy and I worked together because I grabbed something that was multicolored, and this has the cover of a board game. And so board games also bring me joy. So this is like combination of joy for me.
On that note, I brought my teal coffee cup because coffee brings me joy. And I have some fun little folders that are, and honestly, I started with my folder and I couldn't pick a color until I saw my coffee cup and I thought, okay, we'll go teal.
Which is what I picked. It reminds me of the ocean and water, which I love.
I started out with yellow sunflowers, but the thing that does really bring me joy in my surrounding is I have this antique stained glass window, and it's in my main living area. And I look at it every day, and it just brings me joy. Reminds me of my home old church.
That's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. I have a small, tiny canoe paddle that a man at our church made, but the color of wood. It's like just very joyful and satisfying to me today. So that sits on my desk.
It looks like the young preacher from Rwanda has something to show.
Those are cool.
He's so happy that he's showing you his toys. Okay.
Wonderful. I like the blue and I think that's a cow too. Very nice. Anyone else?
He has the black one, the white, and the blue. So
Mhm.
these are the favorite colors he has. This is the puppy. And he's so happy he's mating what you are doing.
So the rest of our card says, say thank you to God for everything that brings you joy. And you can do this by jumping, singing, or dancing. And for the rest of the day, notice when you see your joy color. Notice when you find joy. So that is how you could do a card with a group. I actually did this very card one time with our youth group over Zoom, and I was surprised at how that color, like I suddenly was very aware of it for the rest of the week. And it kind of got us sharing a little bit about our house and how, you know, God didn't have to make these pleasing, beautiful things, but did, and gave us a little something to enjoy. So yeah, thanks for doing that exercise with me.
Thank you, Katie. Now we want to just talk to you a little bit about the various ways to use the card deck, and Allison is going to facilitate that conversation.
Thanks, Shanna. So I have a memory that one reason we ended up doing a lot of art is I had shared about one thing that I do with my 11 and 12-year-old kids at church with a totally different game called Dixit that has art on the back. And we will play it where you just draw a card and you look at it and you show it to everybody, and then you lay it down. You have to tell a story that incorporates that card. And then you hand it to the next person and they pick a card and they use that and continue the story. So we play like circle stories that way. And I haven't tried that with this deck, but I could imagine that it could be fun. And kids at that age are really creative and really willing to just like take a story in every direction. And that kind of creative engagement with art, with stories of faith, with each other, I think is a really important and good thing to do in faith formation. So that's my example of one way that these cards could be used. And we all had a lot of different ideas. So I'm going to call on everybody in turn, and everybody can share a way that they have experience using this or have heard stories about other people using it or ideas for how we might use it. So let's go Marin, and then Katie, Sarah, and Michelle. And Shanna, if you want to also share, you can go last. So Marin.
Yeah, one of our church members is a teacher, and she was thinking of using the deck for early morning when the kids arrive, something to do, look at the cards and choose one and engage with what's on the back, or come up with a story, share with one another. I have used it with two of my friends who are also spiritual director, kind of like an opening activity for a group spiritual direction session, where we each draw 3 cards that we are drawn to, and then kind of start our sharing with those cards. And it's interesting what I see as I draw cards, and then what maybe my friends see differently, and the questions that arise are a little different than when you just share words. I was also part of a quilt retreat recently with 7-8 people, and we used this as one of the activities. Pick a card or two that you're drawn to. And it was interesting. One person looked at the text, never looked at the images, but looked at the text and chose that way, while others chose from the images. And it just led to a really nice way of sharing in terms of faith and beauty. I've also had a friend who used it with male members of her family, and she was fascinated how it allowed the men to express their feelings in ways that she had never experienced it before. So I think art stirs something or touches something that we don't have words for yet, and so it's a way to bring out what's kind of just beyond our consciousness, or so. So those are some of the ways I've used it.
Katie, you're up next.
So we had a Sunday in our children's Sunday school that was sort of in between curriculum. And so we decided to have a cards Sunday. And we had all of the kids, 5th grade and under, together at the opening they did 2 or 3 cards all together, and then split up into classes and had a couple decks per class. And they spent some time just playing with and exploring the cards as individuals and in small groups. And our children do have, each family has a deck at home that we gave them on Pentecost as sort of a Pentecost party present. And so, but it gave us space for them to learn how to play with and use cards. And then one of our teachers, our 4th and 5th grade teacher, she wanted a resource to help the kids learn how to pray and maybe pray out loud even. But I offered her to use the deck so that they could take turns. The kids could choose a card and lead each other each week. So they've been doing that for their time of prayer, where the kids then can lead each other, which is a nice, simple way that doesn't require any preparation. So, yeah.
Thank you, Katie. Sarah?
Sure. I was going to talk a little bit about how we've used these cards as adults. I think originally we were thinking that these would be for families and children, but Maren even talked about how I think these are really applicable to lots of different settings. And so I primarily use this to start meetings with, and I think I'll pick a card out and do it. And I think it's a really nice way to just set like the intention of the meeting and just fully arrive. And another application that I've used these for is having everyone look through the artwork and kind of use it as a way to describe those feelings that you come to the meeting or to the gathering with. And just found that, especially this past year, we've all had a lot of different emotions and sometimes complicated emotions. And that artwork has been a really great way to give at least a visual if we can't always name how we're feeling.
Michelle?
Yeah, I would echo that the use of the cards that I personally am drawn towards is the suggestion to draw a couple of cards that based on the visuals that speak to how you're feeling at that moment, and then use those to kind of enter into a space of prayer or conversation, because that again speaks to how art can sometimes allow us to express or tap into things that we don't necessarily have the words for yet, but we know we're working with. As a parent, one of the things that I've appreciated about the cards are the kind of concise activities that they lead us into, me and my child, where we can pause and do something intentional together for a short period of time. And it's very focused and it's very tangible, and then we can move on. But I've had a couple of really great moments of kind of surprising and genuinely present connection with my child through just taking time to go through the activity on the back of the card together. 2 unexpected outcomes of these cards. One is that I have at least one person in my life who purchased them and has framed a bunch of the art and hung it on their walls, which was not the point of these cards at all, but they enjoy the art, so they just have used it to hang on their walls. And the other funny use of the arts in our context at our church is that at our church retreat last weekend, I had a deck out as one of the kind of afternoon free time activities of if you wanted to explore the deck, you could. And a bunch of people sat around exploring the deck and were playing the game, which art was made by Michelle? And so they pulled out for my community, were guessing which was my art and which was Marin's art. And that was fun to see them engaging it that way as well. But that's unique to our context, I acknowledge, but I do think that there's a lot of different ways to make use of the cards.
I just remember, Michelle, you telling us when we were in the middle of making the deck and you tested a couple of cards with your kid, and you weren't sure how it would go over, and then at the end your kid turned to you and said, "Thanks, Mom." And I was just like, oh, that's really sweet.
Yeah, it was a very sweet gift for me, and it was a sweet gift to give to all of you to realize you all have done some lovely writing and by invitation work in terms of the activities that you've invited people into.
Shanna, did you want to share something?
Sure. I recently had a friend email me this and say that she just recently purchased the set of cards through the AMBS bookstore and decided to keep them at her desk. She says, I pick one to display near my computer for a few days, then move on to a different picture when the current one no longer catches my attention. Sometimes I do the activity or prayer prompts on the back of the card, and sometimes I don't. They are a helpful reminder for me to pause in the midst of the workday, to breathe, pray, and center myself. So I was really appreciative of her sharing that with us. I'm also reminded that recently in one of our earlier roundtables when we were talking about children's Sunday school, one of our guests who started the conversation said that they're only having Sunday school every other Sunday. And she's also told her Sunday school teachers if it's too much to prepare a lesson, then that's okay. Just come and be with the children and don't worry about having a lesson. Just come and be with the children during the Sunday school time. And I am thinking, wouldn't it be perfect to have a deck of these cards for those situations when a teacher really didn't have the energy or the time to put the lesson together and can use these cards, or those congregations where they really can't offer Sunday school right now, but they can offer a time and a space for people to get together and do something like this.